I'm Johanna de Burka, and I'll be facilitating today's fireside chat alongside fellow Just People's co-founder, Christy West. Today, we're going to be discussing the patriarchy, polygamy, and the power and resilience of women around the world. We are super lucky today to have two Kenyan nonprofit founders, Grace Ongong'a and Semerian Sankori, and they're going to be sharing their personal and professional experiences with us today to get our conversation started. We will start with a few questions to get to know those of you who are live on the call today, and then we will move into a couple of interview-style questions from Christy and then transition into a group discussion. The recorded session should last for around 50 minutes, and then we will invite those participants who are joining us today to stay on to chat and delve deeper into the topic with Grace and Semerian if you are so inspired and have the time to stay around with us. To ask any questions during the group discussion, just raise your hand, your real hand or your Zoom hand, or leave a message in the chat function and we will come to you. Today, we'll be touching on topics that can be tricky and upsetting for all of us. We want to ensure that this is a safe space for people to be and to share, and would like to recognise that there's a diversity of cultures and experiences on the call. So we invite you to please be kind, open-minded, and curious as we move through the hour with Grace and Semerian. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Grace, our Ongong'a, and Semerian Sankori, our guest speakers for today. So Christy and I first met Grace on a visit to East Africa last year. Grace grew up in the Kenyan fishing village of Asembo and is the founder of vocational training centre Asembo Skills for Hope. We were so inspired by Grace's vision, her progress, and the robust model that she's developed, which goes far beyond just vocational training and offers a comprehensive approach to women's empowerment, addressing not only economic independence, but also mental health, emotional well-being, and social inclusion. By offering programs in entrepreneurship, health education, life skills, and financial literacy, Grace ensures that women have the confidence and capability to thrive in all aspects of life. Grace's work is grounded in the belief that when women are empowered holistically, they become catalysts for change, uplifting entire communities. With deep compassion and commitment, Grace has created a safe and supportive environment where women can learn, grow, and build a future full of hope and opportunity for themselves and their communities. Welcome, Grace. Our second speaker, Maasai woman Semerian Sankori, is the founder of Patriarchy, an organisation dedicated to empowering and uplifting pastoralist communities in Kenya. Semerian is a passionate advocate for social change with a deep commitment to preserving her Maasai cultural heritage while addressing the pressing challenges faced by marginalised groups, particularly women and girls in rural areas. Through Patriarchy, Semerian has spearheaded a wide range of programs focused on education, health, and economic empowerment, ensuring that women and girls in pastoralist Maasai communities are not left behind. Her work centres on providing access to quality education, mentorship, and life skills, all while respecting and preserving the rich traditions of her community. Semerian's holistic approach addresses not just immediate needs, but also the long-term well-being of the community by focusing on sustainable development and empowering women as agents of change. She has inspired transformative progress in the lives of many Maasai. Welcome, Semerian. Before we begin, we'd now like to ask a couple of questions to get to know you all in the Zoom room today. Okay, so first of all, we'd love to know which country that you are dialing in from today, and also if there are countries that you have lived in previously.
Wow, we're covering the continents, aren't we?
Wonderful. Okay, so we've got lots of people that have spent time in Australia. We've got someone who can't spell Australia, but actually that was me and my chubby fingers. We've got New Zealand, lots of New Zealand, the UK, Philippines, wow, Ireland, Central America, Tanzania, Japan, Rwanda, Cambodia, Vietnam, Singapore, India. Wonderful. Okay, great. It looks like we've got lots of rich experiences and cultures that we can share about on the call today. Christy, would you like to move to the next question?
This one's a little heavier.
It is. How problematic do you think the following manifestations of patriarchy are in the society that you live in now? Wow. Okay. We've got some people getting started already. So the first one is gender pay gap. The second is underrepresentation in decision making. The third is sexual violence and harassment. And the last being unequal domestic expectations. Now, I do want to just shout out that this is not an exhaustive list of the problems that can be involved with the patriarchy. We just wanted to not start too heavy and just start with 4. We can delve into the discussion a little bit later. So just to give you guys another 60 seconds or so. Wow. Okay. This is huge. Yeah. Okay. So we've seen that we're from a lot of different places in the world. And I can see that they're being rated on an average over 8 for gender pay gap, underrepresentation in decision making, sexual violence and harassment, and unequal domestic expectations. That's huge. Okay, I'm glad that we're here to have this conversation and to delve into it further. We do have one more question to ask. This is an optional question, but we'd love to hear your experiences. Christy, are you able to shift on to the next slide, please? Okay, so this is a free answer question, which is one element of the patriarchy that you personally struggle with. So what is one challenge that you face yourself in society or it affects people that you love? Okay, so quite a few responses around violence, sexual assault and harassment, exclusion in decision making and community, unequal expectations, outdated and unrealistic expectations of women as primary caregivers whilst balancing work, also linked to women's loss of superannuation because of motherhood. Yes. Fear of change, knowledge, religion, colonization, culture, getting men to listen, unrealistic expectations for women to be successful, career, appearance, presentation, and on. Absolutely. The inability to deal with a strong businesswoman with a directed approach, assertiveness called emotional, directness seen as aggressive. Yes, absolutely. Weak men not able to deal with a strong woman. I am not directly affected by a personal patriarchy struggle, but it bothers me when I observe this. Okay. Wage gap. Okay. Feel free to keep sharing on here. I will move on just for time purposes. And I feel like we could get stuck in here on this question for quite a while. But I'd really like to hand over to Christy now so that we can move into the discussion section of the call. Christy is going to be asking Semerian and Grace a couple of questions each to get us started on the discussion. And if you have any questions, please do pop them in the chat. And we will come to those questions when we get to the Q&A section after we've heard from Semerian and Grace.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Oh, I feel a little bit heavy after, but it is heavy. And thank you all for joining us and for your honesty in the sharing. The anonymous software is really good for bringing out the truth of the situation, I think. And now we have the privilege to hear from Semerian and Grace more about the experiences that they've had. So I'd like to start by asking, how has patriarchy shaped your life, family, and experience of the world? So Grace, we'll start with you and then move on to Semerian. So how has patriarchy shaped your life, family, and experience of the world?
Thank you very much, Christy and Joe, and thank you everyone for joining us today. That's a question that I can take a day answering, but I'm gonna try and answer it in a very short time. When I grew up in Kenya, and men are the head of families, men make decisions, men decide, and women sometimes just have to share and then wait for the decision to be made. And this cuts across girls, cuts across women, cuts across wives. One typical example that I understand very well of patriarchy is women are supposed to be understanding, women are supposed to be humble. And when there's any form of disagreement in homes, even your own mother will say, you are supposed to be understanding, you're supposed to go down because your husband, even if his voice is loud, even if he's angry, you are supposed to have the lowest voice, If you're getting a divorce, it's definitely your fault. What did you not do, or what did you do to make you lose your home? And so that also trickles down to even more opportunities. There are more opportunities for boys. It's very typical for a girl to be told, we can't take you to high school because your brother needs to go to high school. So you will have to wait. But you waiting also means you are in the community that also encourages violence, and there's a lot of sexual advances and sexual activity from a very young age. I grew up closer to there's sex for food, there's sex for money, and that means there's a higher chance that this girl is going to get pregnant and she's going to leave school. Then the last one is just gender-based violence. It happens all the time. It's accepted. And even for the work that we do, if we take a woman to the chief or to the locals to support, you realize that the chief or the local leader is a brother to the person that you're taking to them. And they'll immediately you leave the door, they'll laugh about it, and then nothing will be done. And it's really hard, as much as we are trying to work towards that equal rights and even teaching the women rights. In our organization, even family planning is a decision of your husband. He's the one who decides if you can use family planning or not. And a woman who now knows her rights, then they term you as, you have your money now, and so you're tough-headed. You're not listening because now you can have even just enough money to buy a smartphone. All in all, we are trying to make change. That's what we are trying to do. One opportunity at a time. We are changing one mind at a time, one policy at a time. And then we hope that with the work that we're doing, we are able to balance it. And the other question that comes into my mind is everything, because the women's rights has become something very popular and everyone is supporting a woman. Now men are asking, what about men? Even the work that I do now, everyone comes and say, what about men? Why are you not empowering men? But at the same time, men have been empowered for years and years. And still, they just also can't fathom that a woman is also getting the same opportunities that they've had for years. But yeah, I'll stop there for now.
It's such a big topic, isn't it? It's hard to keep it to a couple of minutes, but yeah, Thank you for sharing. Semerian, how about you? How has the patriarchy affected your life, family, and experiences of the world?
Good morning, good evening, and thanks everyone for coming. Patriarchy is the second one known after the word Maasai. It's one of the indigenous tribes that is still patriarchal, very patriarchal in the 21st century. It has shaped deeply how women live in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and even now in the 21st centuries. We had issues with limited access to education, where a girl child is not given priority to go to school because she's supposed to be helping with the household chores, and the boys are priority. And the second one is the early forced marriages, where when there's a husband who is available, the girl will be married off. We were fighting this, or the older generation were fighting this in the 70s. We are here in the 21st century still fighting that. Female genital mutilation is a practice and a violation of human rights that is still being practiced just because of the patriarchal society that we live in. Economic independence. Maasai women traditionally rely solely on their husband or male relatives for any financial security. Without equal access to resources such as livelihoods, we are pastoralists. These women take care of this livestock, but they do not have a say in whatever resources are gotten from the sale of this livestock. The role of pastoral economy, which is what Maasai depend on. Women are not known to be the ones to take care of these goats, these sheep, these cows. And their job is just to make sure that they are safe. But when it comes to Friday market day, once it's sold, you lose your power there. The man decides what he's going to do with that money. And half the time, they will go and marry someone else, or they will go and spend it whichever way they want. And tomorrow when he comes, he'll not have money, and the children will be chased from school because of school fees. So Maasai women are still left behind in the 21st century as they did in the 19th and 20th century. We are so patriarchal that even those who are educated, they still practice patriarchal in their household level. My father has had an education, but there are certain things that he will never involve us as girls. When it comes to meetings, he will call my younger brothers because some decisions need to be made. But when it comes to asking for resources to do ABCD, he will come and ask the girls as well to be part of the family. That is when you become family, when they need you or they need to use you. But when they need to make decisions, you're not there, because women are still seen as children. They actually still refer women as children. So it doesn't matter how old you are. The fact that you're a woman, you'll always be a child and viewed as a child in the Maasai community. To an extent where when you lose your husband, if you have an older son, he takes over the decision-making of that household. This is your child that you've given birth to, but you'll still be subordinate to your own child just because he's a man and you're a woman. So for me, living in patriarchy and how it has shaped me, I really thank my mother, my late mother, who helped us see possibility beyond this. She ensured that she worked hard for herself, that she had something that she can call hers, that she didn't need my father to support us in anything. And what patriarchy has taught me is not only the weight of the challenges we face, but also the incredible strength that comes from overcoming them. Her going to school in the 60s and me going to school in the 80s and 90s, I see myself being like my mother. I pride and say I'm who I am, not just because of the investment my father made in my education, but because he married my mother. She is the pillar and the beacon of that family, that none of her daughters was married off without an education, that all of us are able to do what we are doing now because she invested her time and her resources in us. And my father knew that she was strong and respected that. So I'll leave it there. I can go until tomorrow.
Beautiful. Thank you, Semerian. Shout out to your mother. What an amazing job she did. that touched a little bit on the second question. I'll come to Grace and then you can complete the second part. But Grace, polygamy can sometimes carry a complex set of power dynamics, particularly for women. Your experience growing up in a polygamous family where you had 6 mothers and 25 siblings, including you, influenced your perspective on women's rights and independence, I imagine. Can you please let us know a little bit about how that happened and how growing up in a polygamous family influenced your perspective on women's rights?
Yeah, I know it's surprising. We are 16 girls and 9 boys and 6 mothers. And to me, all of them are mothers. We never called them by, typically in Kenya, you are called by, sometimes it's your first son or your daughter's name. So Mama Grace or Mama who and who. And for us, all of them were mothers. I was raised by my stepmom. I honestly do not know why. For the longest time, I wanted to ask, but then I got to realize that, you know what, there's no point. I lost my mom back in 2016. And then that's when I started to build my relationship with my birth mother. Honestly, my stepmom is the best thing that happened to me. I never call her stepmom unless when I have to make it distinctive for people like this. And she was everything. She taught me, she loved me, she supported me, she knew me for who I was, she knew what I wanted to be and supported that irrespective. She made really tough decisions at times until I even wondered. She really loved me so much. And as a teacher, there's a time that my students were, we always know Cinderella story, and then how everyone from that story makes it very clear that bad mothers. And when my students were talking, I almost cried. I do think that I cried. And then it took me a minute to breathe in and let them know that, you know what, I am raised by my stepmom and she's the best thing that happened to me. And so not all stepmothers are bad. But yes, growing up in a community that supports polygamy, it means if you are wealthy, that equals more wives. And my dad was a businessman. So every mother that came in with a responsibility. We had a hospital, one mother was in charge of that hospital. We had a bakery, one other mother was in charge of the bakery. We had a retail shop, every woman had a job. And so you do the job the whole day, and for him, he comes and knows how much was business today, and then he makes major decisions. That's typically how that used to happen. But we lived in harmony, we lived in peace, and we were able to afford, being in that position, we were able to afford basic needs, which unlike most of my friends that I could see, they had like a very small home, and I could see there are 4 or 5 kids with a mother and a husband. And I wondered, how are the kids, how do they share this room? It's a small house, 2 rooms, and that's the kitchen is outside. If it rains, they cook inside. That's the bedroom for both parents and 6 kids. That's the sitting room, that's the dining. But for me, we were able to have a huge room because my dad had different wives. And the other thing is that my dad was really good at it. I want to say so, because the other polygamous families, there are always a lot of fights. You find that the first home and the second home, that means the first wife and the second wife, they are not agreeing. It means the kids are not friends. It means they fight for wealth or whatever is there to be shared. And it's a lot of rivalry and hatred and fights. And I never saw that growing up. We just lived in peace. We still do. We still connect every year with my siblings. There are so many you won't believe. And we made sure that we connect every year to just know my siblings, their wives, their husbands, their children. I am an aunt. I went to Rwanda as a teacher when I was 22. And I met my cousin for the first time in Rwanda, who was 23. Not my cousin, he's the child of my sister. I'm literally his aunt, and he's older than me. And so I couldn't tell any, I changed it to a cousin. I used to just tell them that's my cousin, because if I say I'm his aunt, I'll have to take a whole day explaining how is that even possible. That is my life. And now everyone asks me that because you grew up in a polygamous family, would you get married in a polygamous family? And some people assume that because you were brought up in a polygamous family, it's automatic that you will get married in a polygamous family. Someone made a comment literally 1 week ago and said, you'll probably get married in a polygamous family. And I said, is that a question or a statement? And he said, if you were brought up in a polygamous family, you definitely grow up in a polygamous family. But it comes with the challenges because we have so many siblings, then you can't connect with all of them. I probably see some of my siblings are just friends and not brothers and sisters because they don't know me that much. I don't know them that much. I just only have few siblings whom I can share what's going on. They know me. They probably know my life. And others, we just meet and I greet them the same way I would meet and greet someone in church. We are family, yes, but we don't see each other. We don't talk that much. And so there's that disconnect. And so those are just some of the challenges that you face while growing up in a big family.
Thank you, Grace. It's very interesting imagining you and all your brothers and sisters hanging out and living in harmony. It's amazing, really, that harmony was possible with so many people and so many conflicting interests. So, yeah, we'll have to learn some peacekeeping skills from you later. And Semerian, what was it like for you, who came from a nuclear family with one father and one mother within a polygamous society? Did you ever wish you had more than one mother or more siblings?
Interesting question. Yes, I came from a nuclear family, one father, one mother, and my mother had 10 biological children, 10 of us. So I guess the fact that my father never married another one, he made sure that my mother gave birth to enough children to equate to 2 wives. I also grew up with a lot of cousins. We had a lot of cousins at home, both from my dad's side and my mom's side, who lived with us all through their lives and are brothers and sisters now. So there was no time that we were only my mother children in our household. I have brothers and sisters that are not from my mother, but they are now my brothers and sisters because we grew up together. But it was very interesting. Before land subdivision, where homesteads were very large, where we lived with my uncles who are all polygamous, it was only my dad's household that had one wife. My other 2 uncles all had more than 2 wives. So it was really interesting seeing arrangement the other side of the homestead and how ours was. I had cousins from all the 3 wives of both my uncles. And honestly, I've never wished that I would have a step sister or a step brother, because growing up, I've always seen challenges, and it's nice to hear the positive, like Grace, what she said about all her moms getting along and working and all. The father must have had very strong leadership skills to do that. Because what I see in Maasai, as much as they say that it works, it only works because the patriarchy, you are not supposed to speak up as a woman and you have no right as a woman. So whether I like it or not, the fact that I was married to you, marriage is arranged marriage, so I did not choose you. My father said there's a man there that needs a wife and I'm giving you away, and you go crying from your father's homestead to your husband's homestead until you get used to knowing this person and now being a wife. So I never saw anything happy, honestly, from the families that I grew up with or were neighbors with. And even my friends in primary school who are also from polygamous family, I've never seen anything. And one positive, and I think there is positive, is with nuclear families that the children from nuclear receive more focused parental attention because the father only has one household. So dad will always be in our household. He'll not be anywhere else. So we are very close to my dad as compared to my cousins and their dad, my uncle. And that fostered a very strong bond with us. And now that we've lost my mom, the bond is still there. And thankfully that bond was nurtured at an early age when we were younger. However, there can be a sense of isolation as well. During that time, we didn't feel it because my parents were educated, so we are a bit different from the rest. But for those maybe that were never, or the parents never went to school and the kids maybe never went to school, maybe they could feel isolation, that they are only a small family while all around them they are big families or larger families. And also networks, like you have less networks when you're from a nuclear family than when you're from a polygamous family. So for me, I still think it's a challenge. It's still happening as we speak, still happens, still happening to the learned ones who are younger generation. So patriarchy runs so deep that it will, I don't know, I don't think it's ever going to go anywhere, because I'm still seeing the same challenges. And the challenge is that they do it forgetting that the population is educated now. Women are not, the women now are not the women of my mother's age, who most of them never went to school. So they cannot put up with what our mothers put up with. They know their rights. So you find a lot of them not working because women have a voice now. Some women are professional, they are working, they are educated, so they have careers. And then you expect them to put up with challenges that existed in the 60s and the 70s. It's not possible. So for me, I think polygamy is just for the men, whether you like it or not as a woman. They really don't care. They don't care whether you are loved or not loved. The fact remains the man is happy and it goes as they wish. So I enjoyed coming from a nuclear family, and I would never have wished, and I will never be in a polygamous marriage as well.
Thank you. Wow, incredible. There's so much in there. Thank you both so much for laying the groundwork for us to launch from there into a Q&A. We just have one more mentee question just to gauge how everyone received the information from Grace and Semerian, because I've talked to them about these topics before, but even for me, there's a lot of new things in there. I would just like to ask what the one thing is that has stood out for you during the conversation so far. The different perspectives on polygamy within Kenya, the irony of men coming to Grace and saying, "What about men?" I know. Still so much resistance to change in other cultures and countries. QR code, I'm going to remove. How these amazing women are breaking the cycle. Absolutely. The strength and intelligence of these women to overcome and flourish, yes. The change is too slow, but it's happening. Are we to blame as women? Have come such a long way and yet so far to go. Today's women have a voice for change. This is thanks to women, Semerian and Grace. Harmony is possible even with so many wives under one roof. Wonderful. Okay, thank you. If you want to keep typing, please do. I think that comment that someone put, different perspectives on polygamy within Kenya, I think that's interesting. And is this something that you guys come across a lot, that there's not one hard and fast general understanding of polygamy or acceptance of it, but everyone has their own ideas and people are for or against it, such as, for example, in the US at the moment, there's the presidential election and abortion is a huge hot topic that everyone's either for or against. Everyone's got an opinion on it. Is polygamy similar to that it's something people are passionate about, or it's more just part of life?
Is that a question, Christy?
I think so.
I don't think it's even there is room for debate in this. As I said again, patriarchy is so strong. For instance, in my Maasai community, that they'll not come to you and ask you, "Oh, I'd like to get another wife. Are you in agreement? Or what do you think about it?" No, they don't need your opinion. They will go and get another wife and bring, and they'll tell you, "Oh, now I've got another wife, and I'm going to build her there, or she'll stay here until I build her somewhere." So they'll not ask you for your opinion. And that's why I say we still do not have a voice as women. we are excluded from any decision making whatsoever, including decisions about your children. They will marry off your daughter and they will not ask you, should we marry her off? No, the man decides and it goes.
So the mother doesn't even get a chance to have input in when her daughter is married, let alone the daughter. Of course, the daughter doesn't have a say, but not even the mother.
Yes, yeah. The daughter, nobody even gives an opportunity to a child. In fact, you are expected to be silent and quiet. Those are the good children. When you talk, they say you're disrespectful. That's why when you see Maasai children, they are very timid. They hardly look at you straight in the eye. That's because you're born being told you have no voice. We have that big challenge in our education program, because as much as we are trying to intervene in literacy and numeracy, they still are very shy and very timid. And it's about culture. You're not supposed to be heard.
I've got a question here for you, Semerian, actually. It says, would you be kind enough to share some of the projects you're undertaking in your county or country, all with a view to empowering and bringing women together?
Sure. So Patriarchy exists to address 4 challenges: education intervention in rural primary schools, and foundation skills, parental engagement and education, sexual and reproductive health for girls and women due to the high rate of teen pregnancies, environmental justice for women, access to land and resources, and economic empowerment. So for women, economic empowerment, we support them in building an alternative skill beside pastoralism, which is what they are known for. So we have a tailoring program that we have 15 trained women as tailors now that are working and are making a living through that skill that they've learned. We also have a goat rearing program where we support women groups with goats. They already possess the knowledge, they know they have the land. So we just support with a seed of goats where they multiply and they are able to sell and start businesses with the resources from it. So we have those 2 programs for women. Thank you.
Thank you, Semerian. Grace, what kind of projects are you undertaking in order to empower and bring women together in your community?
Yeah, so we do vocational skills training. So the first one is we give women scholarship to get into our vocational skills, which is our skills academy. We have tailoring and fashion and design. We also provide business skills training to allow them know how to run a successful business, how to manage their money, bookkeeping, finance management, and all of that. Then we have life skills training where we engage the women on women's rights, family planning, gender-based violence, parenting, and sexual reproductive health. After that, when they graduate the program, we have microcredit and mentorship program where we provide personalized business coaching and finance to help them boost or start their existing businesses. We also have well-being support. We do understand that this skills alone is not enough. These are women who are already going through issues in their lives. So we create a safe space for the women to have counseling, a community where they can share with one another. And then we also provide, apart from counseling, we also provide visits to their homes to just make sure that we can talk to them. We realized 2 years ago that we are providing all these services to the, especially touching on gender-based violence, to the women, but the gender usually happens at home with especially their husbands. So we are bringing in the men to talk mainly about positive ways to solve conflicts within our families.
Thank you. It's so important to bring in the men and get them on board with anything that you do to empower women to, reduce the backlash. So there's a question here. What age is normal for a daughter to be married off? And I wonder if it's different in your communities.
Yes, it will be different because in my community, as we speak right now, I have a case of 2 girls who are pregnant. One is 14 and the other one is 15 years old, and they are pregnant the second time, meaning in 2022, they gave birth. We returned them to school and now they are pregnant again. So they were pregnant when they were 12. One was 12 and the other one was 13. So you'd find in spaces that there are no NGOs like us who will intervene, these young girls will get married. So they can get married as long as they're of reproductive age.
Okay, so as soon as they get their period,
yes,
they can be married.
Or now, because most of them are in school, when, for instance, they make a mistake and they get pregnant like those ones, then the men will take an advantage to marry them off, because it will not look like their forced marriage. They will say, we educated them, we invested in them, but they went and got pregnant. So they take advantage of that.
I see. Yeah, tricky, isn't it? When you're investing in girls, but breaking culture, it takes a long time to understand. As you said in your podcast episode about trying to do family planning in a situation where it's taboo to talk about it at all.
For those who are joining us live, delving further into this with Semerian and Grace together. Before we go, I just want to say a huge thank you to Semerian and Grace for sharing their experiences with us. Thank you all for coming along and for participating. It's been really beautiful to have you all here and hear your thoughts and experiences. As Christy just alluded to, we have recorded recent podcast interviews on Why Give a Buck with Semerian and Grace. And I'm just sharing a link in the chat to the podcast. It's the two most recent interviews that we've got. If you like listening and you'd like to hear about their stories and experiences. And I'm also going to share with you, if you prefer the written word, some profiles on Semerian and Grace, if you would like to explore their work further and see how you can get involved in some of the projects that they're currently delivering. So I've just shared those in the chat now. And for those who are watching the recording, they'll be in the notes of the recording as well, so you can access those links. We just have one more question to ask you. How are you feeling now?
The mixed bag of emotions so far, isn't it?
I think that's what happens with these topics. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm feeling a mix of emotions. Anger is definitely there. Amazed by our speakers, absolutely.
That is definitely a universal thought right now. Hopeful. It's beautiful. Yeah. Frustrated. Absolutely. Keeping hope alive. I like that. Beautiful. So for those of you that do need to sign off, thank you so much for joining, and we'll send you a follow-up email with some more information about how you can keep following Semerian and Grace's journeys. And we thank you so much for joining us and hope to see you again at one of our events soon. For those of you who do want to stay on, please do. We're going to be sticking around for another half hour for those that want to keep chatting.